Warning: the information contained in this video may be disturbing to some viewers and is intended for mature viewers only. Viewer discretion is advised. Joachim Kroll was born on April 17, 1933, in East Germany near the Polish border. His childhood was riddled with poverty and starvation due to the effects of the Second World War. His father was taken prisoner by the Russian army during the war and was never seen again. His mother died while he was still in his teens. After her death, his brothers and sisters all went their separate ways, and eventually all lost contact with Joachim. On February 8, 1955, 22-year-old Kroll committed his first kill. 19-year-old Irmgard Schrell was raped and stabbed to death near the town of Ludenhausen. Irmgard was an attractive blonde, dressed all in green, sporting shoes, coat, shawl, and bookcase. Kroll met her while walking on a local road and invited her for a walk in the woods. After walking for approximately 120 meters away from the road, Kroll tried to kiss her, but Irmgard resisted. This rejection enraged Kroll, who proceeded to stab Irmgard 4 times in the neck. Afterwards, he strangled and raped her, and in a final act of evil, Kroll sliced open Irmgard's stomach just before he walked away as if nothing had happened. Irmgard was found 5 days later amidst snow-covered brush beside the road to Herrenstein. Kroll's next victim was 12-year-old Erika Schluter. She was found in 1956, raped and strangled in the town of Kirchhellen. Kroll was never charged with Erika's brutal murder due to a lack of evidence. Clara was 24 years old when she was raped and murdered by Kroll on the 16th of June 1959 in the meadows of the Rhine River near the town of Rheinhausen. Kroll stated that he took her by the arm, but she reacted badly, so he hit her in the head. Kroll and Clara rolled down the side of the road while Clara fought for her life. Sadly, Kroll overcame Clara and strangled and raped her. There are varying accounts, but it is believed that Clara's killing will be the first time that Kroll removed flesh from his victims. Kroll took Clara's flesh home to prepare for his dinner. Her naked body was found the next day by 5 boys out riding their bicycles. A local man named Heinrich Ott was arrested for Clara's murder. He hung himself while awaiting trial. In a morose case of foreshadowing, Heinrich Ott would not be the first person wrongfully accused or jailed for Kroll's crimes. 16-year-old Manuela Knott was murdered on Sunday, July 26, 1959, in the city of Essen. Manuela was strangled and raped. Kroll removed pieces of Manuela's flesh and used them to prepare his dinner later that night. Manuela was later found naked amongst some bushes. 6 months after Manuela's murder, on February 13, 1960, a 24-year-old Horst Otto walked into the Essen police station and confessed to Manuela's murder. Later, Otto will withdraw his declaration of guilt. There is no found documented reason for his false confession. Otto remained in prison and was convicted of Manuela's murder in March of 1961. He was sentenced to 8 years. In 1962, his sentence was reduced to 6 years. Otto will spend a total of 5 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. He was released in 1965. 12-year-old Barbara Bruder went missing on September 3, 1962, in Berscheid-Klein, Hamburg. Barbara was on her way to a playground, but never arrived. It is believed that Barbara took a shortcut through the woods, which is where Kroll was lying in wait for his next victim. Although Kroll confessed to strangling and raping Barbara, he was never charged. Barbara's body has never been found. 13-year-old Petra Geis was killed on Monday, April 23, 1962, in a forest outside the town of Dinslaken-Bruckhausen. Petra was visiting a fair with a friend, and it is believed that Kroll lured her away. Petra was strangled with her own scarf, raped, and then dismembered. Kroll removed both buttocks as well as Petra's left forearm and hand to take home for consumption. Petra's body was found the next day amongst some bushes. police suspected and arrested minor sex offender and pedophile 52-year-old Vincenzo Kuhn. He was sentenced to 12 years imprisonment and psychiatric treatment. Kuhn spent 6 years in prison for Petra's murder. Thirteen-year-old Monica Taffel was killed on June 4, 1962, in Waltham. Kroll spotted Monica while she was on her way to school. Kroll dragged her into a field, masturbated over her body, and cut stakes from her buttocks and the backs of her thighs. Monica's body was found on July 11th by a police helicopter in part of a forest outside of the town. She had also been strangled and raped. A known pedophile, 34-year-old Walter Quicker, was arrested for Monica's murder based solely on testimony from witnesses. The police had to let Walter Quicker go due to lack of evidence. However, in the eyes of his neighbors and community, Quicker was guilty of this horrendous crime. His wife divorced him, and his neighbors and community members continued to persecute him in their own ways. People would point and sneer at him. Local shops refused to serve him. Knowing that he was innocent and suffering such hatred from his friends and community for months, Quicker decided he had had enough, and on October 5th, 1962, Quicker went into the forest outside of town and hung himself from a tree. On August 22, 1965, 25-year-old Herman Schmitz became Kroll's only male victim. Herman and his girlfriend Marion Veen were parked in a lover's lane near a lake in Grosenbaum, Duisburg. Kroll saw Marion in the car with Herman and slashed the car's tire. Herman got out of the car to see what had happened. It was at this point that Kroll stabbed Herman in the chest twice, piercing his heart with both stabs. Herman died instantly. Kroll then turned his attention to Marion, who was still in the car. Marion jumped into the driver's seat of the car and began honking the horn over and over again. Somehow, she found the strength and bravery to start driving the car, and she aimed directly at Kroll, who had begun to flee. Marion narrowly missed Kroll. She stopped the car and ran back to Herman. She cradled him in her arms, praying for him to open his eyes. But Herman was gone. Marion's actions had caught the attention of many people, who all searched frantically for the assailant. Unfortunately, Kroll had managed to escape. 20-year-old Ursula Rolling was killed on Tuesday, September 13, 1966, in a park in the town of Marl. Ursula had been on a date with her boyfriend, 27-year-old Adolf Schickel, at an ice cream parlor. After their date, Ursula headed home through the park as usual. Kroll was lying in wait for his next victim and saw Ursula walking alone through the park. He grabbed her by wrapping his arm around her neck and dragged her into some bushes close by. There, he strangled and raped her. Kroll left Ursula where he had killed her and casually walked away to board a train home. Ursula's body was found 2 days later, naked from the waist down. The police arrested Adolf Schickel as he was the last person to see Ursula. However, after questioning Adolf, they did not have enough evidence to charge him. He was let go. However, much the same as Walter Quicker, Adolf was ostracized by his community. They felt he was guilty of this horrible crime. Adolf was chased out of the town of Marl, and on January 4, 1967, Adolf drowned himself in the main river near Wiesbaden. 5-year-old Ilona Hark was kidnapped by Kroll on December 22, 1966. Kroll took young Ilona on a long journey until they reached a water source called the Feldbach. There, Kroll raped and drowned Ilona. When asked what his motives were, Kroll replied that he wanted to see how someone drowned. 10-year-old Gabrielle Putman was attacked by Kroll on June 22, 1967. Kroll lured Gabrielle into a field near a local coal mine. Gabrielle attempted to run away from Kroll, but he caught her and began to strangle her. Just as Kroll was about to succeed in another killing, the sirens from the coal mine began to howl, indicating shift change. Kroll fled, luckily leaving Gabrielle alive. Gabrielle's parents did not report this attack until 9 years later, when Gabrielle was able to identify Kroll from the newspaper accounts of his arrest. 61-year-old Maria Hetchen was killed on July 12, 1969. According to Kroll, when he encountered Maria during a walk, he felt a tickling urge all throughout his body. He attempted to start a conversation with Maria, but she politely declined. Kroll hit Maria and dragged her into some bushes, where he raped and strangled her. Maria's body was found the next day. 13-year-old Jutta Rahn was killed on May 21, 1970. It is believed that Kroll was traveling on the same train as Jutta and began to follow her when she exited the train. Jutta was on her way home from the train station and took a shortcut through a local woods. This is where Kroll attacked and strangled her. On June 9, 1970, Jutta's neighbor and boyfriend, Peter Shea, is arrested for the killing of Jutta. Peter will spend 15 months in prison before being released due to a lack of evidence. 10-year-old Karen Topfer was killed on May 8, 1976, while on her way to school. Karen was strangled and raped by Kroll. However, due to a lack of evidence, Kroll will never be charged with Karen's murder. 4-year-old Marion Ketter was kidnapped and murdered on July 3, 1976, in Kroll's own apartment. Marion will be Kroll's last victim. Kroll dismembered Marion's body for consumption and placed pieces of her in his freezer. Kroll disposed of some of Marion's body parts down his drains in his apartment, which clogged the pipes for the entire building. When police were conducting door-to-door searches for Marion, a neighbor of Kroll's complained to the police about the blocked drains and raised suspicions of the police, and they decided to look further into Kroll's apartment. Inside the apartment, the police found pots of vegetables and human body parts boiling on the stove, and Kroll's freezer containing more body parts. Kroll confessed to the murder of Marion. During interrogation, Kroll also began to brag about murders that the police were not aware of. Kroll was sentenced to 9 terms of life imprisonment on April 8, 1982. Kroll died of a heart attack in prison on July 1, 1991.